My name is Fiona Slater, and I was 34 the night my fiancé's family tried to buy my silence for the price of my own name. It happened at the rehearsal dinner in a country club dining room with 60 guests watching, when my future mother-in-law slid a folded document across the white tablecloth and said, loud enough for the back tables to hear, that I should sign it because I was a gold digger who brought nothing to this family. I read every line of it. I picked up the pen. And they all leaned in, certain they knew exactly how this ended. They thought the folder sitting in front of me was empty. What I did next, with that pen already in my hand, and why my father-in-law at the far end of the table nearly came out of his chair, is the part none of them ever saw coming. Welcome back to Calm Drama Stories, where the quietest woman at the table is usually the one holding the whole thing up. If a story about being underestimated by the people who owed you the most has ever kept you up at night, you are among friends here. Drop a comment and be sure to subscribe. Because to understand that pen, you have to go back to a truck, a pair of gloves, and everything I taught myself to hide. I own a company called Slater Grounds, commercial landscaping and snow removal, the kind of work nobody photographs. 12 years ago, it was one used truck, a second-hand mower, and me answering the phone in a parking lot. Now it is 40 trucks, 90 employees, and contracts across 3 counties. Hospitals, corporate campuses, the interstate medians, the state pays us to keep clear. When it snows at 2 in the morning, my crews are the reason people get to work. That business made me a wealthy woman, though you would never guess it to look at me. I drive a 2009 pickup with a dented tailgate. I wear the same flannel shirts I wore when I was 22 and broke. My hands are rough because I still get out and pull weeds when a job runs behind. Money, for me, has always been something you build and then keep quiet about. I learned that young, and I learned it the hard way. Every time someone in my life found out what I had, something changed in their face. The math started. The asking followed. Friends turned into people with a proposal. A boyfriend once told me I made him feel small, then made sure I felt smaller. So I got good at looking like I had nothing. I paid for things without flinching and let people assume the flinch was there. I told myself it was humility. Really, it was armor. I had learned that the fastest way to lose people was to let them see how much you had. And for most of my life, that armor worked exactly the way I wanted it to. Then I met a man who never once asked me what I earned. The armor started with my grandmother. She raised me after my parents stopped being able to. She cleaned other people's houses for 30 years and never once acted like it made her less than the people whose floors she scrubbed. She had a pair of leather work gloves, cracked and soft from use, that she wore for everything. The garden, the gutters, the old lawnmower she kept running long past its time. When I was small and complained that we did not have what other families had, she would hold up those gloves and tell me something I did not understand until much later. Worth isn't inherited, she said. It's built. You make it with these, and nobody can take it back across the table. She died when I was 19, and she left me almost nothing anyone could deposit. She left me the gloves. I started the company 3 years after her funeral, with those gloves in the truck's glove box, and I have carried them to every important day of my life since. They were in my pocket the day I signed my first 6-figure contract. They were in my pocket the day I paid off the last loan. They smell like her still, if I press them to my face, which I do more often than I would admit to anyone. I built everything I have with my own 2 hands because the woman who raised me showed me how. That is the part the Ashfords could never have known, sitting in their club with their name on the library wall. They thought a person's value came stamped on them at birth. My grandmother taught me it came off your hands. I met Ethan Ashford in a parking lot at 6 in the morning, in 8 inches of fresh snow. He taught history at the high school my company plowed, and he had come out early to help shovel the walkways before the buses arrived, which no teacher was paid to do. I found him doing it wrong, hurting his back, and I showed him the right way to throw snow so it does not come back on you. We talked for 20 minutes while my crew finished the lot. He did not ask what I did for a living exactly. He asked what I liked to read. When I told him, he lit up and named a book I loved, and we stood there in the cold, arguing about the ending until his fingers went white. He was gentle in a way I was not used to. He wore a coat that had been mended at the elbow and did not seem to care. He looked at me like I was interesting, not like I was a set of numbers he was trying to add up. For the first time in longer than I could remember, I did not feel like I had to shrink. I did not feel the armor click into place. I gave him my number, which I almost never did, and I told myself it was because he taught history and had kind eyes. Really, it was because he had spent 20 minutes with me and never once asked the question that always ruined it. He never asked me what I was worth. 2 years later, I understood why. In his world, they only asked that question about people they had already decided to reject. I knew the name Ashford before I knew Ethan. Everyone in the county did. It was carved over the entrance to the town library, and it hung under the oldest portraits in the Historical Society, men in high collars who had owned the mill before the mill closed. The Ashfords were what people in that town meant when they said old family, not rich, exactly, in any way you could see.